Django is a batteries included MVT framework, but as project grows, it can become overwhelming, causing developers to spend more time managing structure than building features. In part 3 of this series, we will install Django and other few packages, then we'll set up our Django project using best practices. If you are new to this channel, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment to support the content. Code with Eno. A virtual environment is a lightweight package installation with its own package directories. So why do you need a virtual environment for each project? Installing everything globally pollutes the list of packages, making it hard to track specific project dependencies. The command pip install-u will install the package and update its dependencies. This may mess up with other packages and break other projects. In most systems, installing globally requires super user privileges like sudo. When that happens, the setup.py of the package will run, and if it contains harmful code, this may affect your system. So at first I used to create my virtual environment using .vnv or using the VNV package, and I call the name of the package, the name of the folder that's going to contain the package is .vnv, until I discover UV that seems to be faster and more efficient. So in this project we're going to use the UV, and in order to initialize our project we have to make sure here I have already the folder where all my project files are going to reside. Currently I have the doc folder that contains the planning we have been doing, we did on the previous video, and we have the license and the readme. So here I'm gonna initialize this folder with UV in it, and because I just want to create the py project.ml file that is going to contain my packages once I install them, which is similar to the requirement.txt that I've been using in my previous video. So here I'm just gonna use the dash bar, and for the name of the project I'm gonna say Todo Planner, and once we run that, we're gonna have the file has been created. So if we go into the file, we're gonna see that the name of the project is here, the version, it requires Python 3.12 and above, and the dependencies right now are empty. All right, so before we go ahead and do the installation, it's important to understand here that I will be considering different environments for our projects to run in. For example, we have the development, we have the staging, we have the production, we have the testing. So we don't want to have a package like IPython. Okay, IPython that is mainly used for to interact with the terminal. Okay, it's mostly used for development. I don't want to have that installed in my production environment. So that's why we're going to separate all the environment and install the packages based on the environment we'll be using. Okay, first thing first, we're going to install packages that are going to be used for all environments, like Django and Django Environ. So we start off with Django. So here we're gonna say UV at Django, and once we run that, we're gonna see that this packages has been installed. We have the Django 5.2.6 and the dependencies that has been installed as well. So the second one is gonna be the Django Environ. So that's gonna help us to read environment variables, okay, from the .env file. So UV at Django Environ. Alright, so this doesn't depend on anything else, because if not, the dependency will have been installed. But as we're installing, we see here that that have been added to this dependency list. Alright, we are done with installing the packages that are going to be used in all the environment. Now let's focus on packages for the development environment. We have the UV at IPython that's going to be used for the development environment. So in order to install a package in the development environment, we're going to use after the at, we're going to use the def, the --def, and it's going to be installed in the dependency group called the def. And we can see, all the different dependencies that comes with IPython. So the next one under the same development environment is the Django extension. So this is going to be used to auto import necessary packages and modules from Django when we start our shell. So we have a specific way we're going to start our shell that's going to import, packages and models. So in order to install that, we have the uv add-dev because we are installing in the development environment. So once we run that, we have that installed. Okay, so for now, we're going to keep it at the level of the global and the development environment. Once we are ready for deployment, we are going to install packages for the production environment like the G-Unicorn and so on and so forth. And in order to install it, we have to use the group, and we specify the group that we want to use here, in this case the production, okay, and the name of the package, because UV does not have a predefined production environment like it has for the dev. So in order to do that, we need to specify that we are creating a new group called the prod, and we specify the package as well. All right, with that out of the way, we need to check the different packages that has been installed. We have different ways by which we can check that. We can always check our pipe project .ml file, and we can also check this uv.log that contains more detail about all the packages, and the dependencies. So we have all of those and the links to the source, to the distribution, to the wheel, and so on and so forth. We also have a few commands that we can use. If we're using uv pip, we have uv pip list. We can see it calls the pip. So because it calls the pips, we need to first activate the virtual environment. We can see the virtual environment has been created here with the .vnv folder that contains all our installed packages. So in order to use the uv pip list, we need to make sure that we activate our virtual environment first. And we have another one, which is the uv tree, that gives you a more tree-like structure of all the packages and the dependency. This one does not require you to activate the virtual environment because somehow UV recognize the virtual environment. So if I use the UV tree, we can see here that we have a tree-like structure of all the different dependencies, all the different packages and the dependency. We can see Django depends on these two, and we have IPython depends on these, which depend on others, and so on and so forth. But in order to check the other way, we need to first activate the virtual environment. So I can source like this first, and once I have that source, I can say uv pip list, and these are all the dependencies, all the packages, that have been installed already. Alright, let's go ahead and create our Django project. In order to do that, we can use the Django admin start project command, and we have so many ways we can use this command. The most common way is just to specify a folder here, and everything will be created in this folder. But this comes with some issues. The issue is that it's going to create some unnecessary nested folders. Okay, so what I like to do is to call the folder that is going to contain all the configuration files config, and I just use dot to indicate that I want everything to be created in the current working directory. This way we won't have those unnecessary nested folders. So if we go ahead and run this, take some time, and we're gonna see we have the config has been created. The config contains the configuration such as the asynchronous GI and the WSGI. We have also the setting and the URL, and outside of it we have the manage.py. all right, so this is the way I like to create my Django projects. So I previously mentioned that our project will handle multiple environments like dev, the prod, the staging, and testing, and so on and so forth. This environment will have varying configuration when it has to do with settings. Okay, these settings that we see at this level here. So this contains configuration for our Django project, and the different environments we are going to use are going to contain different configurations. All right, so to have all of those configurations for the different environment in one file like this is not really scalable. So what we're going to do to remediate this issue is to create a folder called settings. Then inside that folder, we're going to have the different Python files that are going to represent the different environment. So what I'm going to do is that in the config, we're going to have the settings folder, and in that setting folder, of course, I first have my .init, so that Python recognizes it as a module. And in here, I have my base.py that's going to contain common configuration for all the environment. Then I'm going to have specific configurations like the dev.py or dev.py, sorry. And we'll be adding more configuration as time goes. All right, so once we have that, let's go ahead and separate the different configuration that we have here into the base that contain the common configuration and the dev that contain configuration for the development environment. So we're going to start with the base, and we will see that something like this is going to go to the base because it contains the package path and also define the base directory. So we're going to have it here. And the little modification we're going to do is at this level, because we can see at first the setting is one level or is two level down to the working directory. We can see from the working directory, we'll go to the config and we can see the setting. That's why we had parent twice, because the first parent leads us to the setting and the second parent leads us to the Todo Planner. So now that our setting is embedded in the settings folder, which is another one level down, so we need to add one parent again here. All right, so going back to the setting, so the security here is gonna be, we're gonna remove the security because it contains secret information, and we'll come back to that. But for now, I think what we need is the install app. So the install app is something that's going to be common for all our environment. So we're going to have it down here, and yeah, we're going to do something really simple here. We don't want everything to be added to this install app. For example, if you create your custom package, you're going to add it somewhere here. Let's say we create project, and let's say we install the Django REST framework. We're going to have it somewhere here. Okay, so we can see here that this is a mixture of third-party packages, custom packages, and default packages. So I don't want that confusion. I don't want everything to be, tied up to one list like this. So in order to fix that, we are going to instead put the one to be the default apps, and we're gonna create our custom apps here. It's gonna be empty for now, and then third-party apps is gonna be empty as well. And down here we're gonna use the install app, and yeah, it's gonna contain the summation of all of this. So it's gonna start with the default plus the custom plus the third party. All right, so that we know fully well that everything has been separated. We have the default apps here, and we have the custom that is going to contain our user-defined application, and we have the third party that's going to contain the installed application. All right, let's go ahead and check again. The next thing is going to be the middleware that runs between the request and the response. So we're going to have it in the base here, and for now we are not using any custom middleware. So for now we just have the default middleware. Let's go again. Let's see. All right, this one, yes, and the template as well. But because we are creating an API, the template may not be important for us right now. But let me just copy all of this, and I'm gonna move them down to the base and have them there. So what else? So let's look. This one as well. We're gonna move it to the base. The WSGI application, This is our local server. And what else? So for the database, of course, we're going to use different databases for different environment. Like for the development environment, we're going to use, if we're using PostgreSQL throughout our database, our implementations, of course, we're going to have a different PostgreSQL database in the development and a different PostgreSQL database in the production. Okay, so they are going to have different configuration like the passwords and so on and so forth. So for now, I'm going to have the database configuration for each environment. So I'm not going to have them in the base for now. And we have the auth password, of course. The auth password is going to be there. And these languages as well is going to be there. The language, the time zone, and so on. And I think this tool is going to be there as well. Alright, again, this one may not be important because we're building an API. Okay. Alright, so just to make sure that we are focusing on the API, so I'm going to go ahead and comment out this one. And in order for it to work, we need to comment out this default package as well, the static file package. And I'm going to comment out the templates as well. And we're going to see if everything works as expected. All right, so let's move on to the development. And in the development, we're gonna first thing first, we're going to install everything from the base. So from .base install star. So of course this is not recommended in Python, okay, but because we want to get everything from the base, that's why to save time we're going to use the star, the asterisk. And the next thing is to get the secret key, because the secret key will be different for the different environment that we're going to use. Okay, so for now we're going to just copy this and put in the def, but when we'll be dealing with environment variable, we're going to see how to remove this into a .env file and consume it from there using Django env. So after that, we're gonna copy these two and have them in the def, because the debug is gonna be true for development, but it's gonna be false for production. And for the allowed host, here we're gonna use star, because we want to we don't want to limit the host here, but in production we're going to limit the host, okay, to our domain name that we bought and so on and so forth. And remember, we installed, during our installation process, we installed the Django extension, and this Django extension requires that we mention this package in the install app. So in order to do that, we can see here that we actually separated everything into default, custom, and third party, and at the end we merged everything into the install apps. So in this case, in our def, we are going to have, because this is a development environment setting, so we're going to have the third party is going to be equals to, here we're going to mention the Django extension. Okay, and after that, at the end, we are going to merge it back into the, so we can do it like this and merge it back into the install app. So we merge everything back into the install app. Okay, now the next thing here is gonna be our database, because like I said, the database is gonna be different for all the environment. For now, we are going to stick with the SQLite database, but in my next video, I'm going to set up the PostgreSQL. So for now, we want to focus a lot more on the project structure. Okay, so here we're going to use SQLite. And another thing we need to remember is that it's not actually a good idea to use different databases, different type of databases for the different environment. For example, using SQLite for development, then using PostgreSQLite for production is not a good idea. We want to make sure we have the same type of databases for all the environment. Okay, so we're going to change this in our next video. Our Django project contains some sensitive information that is not recommended to expose. For example, the secret key. And later on, when we'll be configuring our PostgreSQL database, we will not like to expose the password. In order to fix this, we need to use environment variables. And environment variables are key value pairs that store configuration data. So let's go ahead and first create our .env file that's going to contain our key value pair for the secret information. So in the working directory, let's make sure we are in the working directory. We create our .env, and coming back to our dev. So here we're going to remove this value from here, and I'm going to create a new one because that has been exposed already. Okay, exposed to you. So I'm going to create a new one, and I like to do it using the secret module, the secret package, but you can use any other method that you know. So yeah, I'm gonna start my IPython interactive terminal. Then I'm gonna import secret, and I'm gonna say secret token URL safe, give it a size of 50, the length of 50, and I'm going to change this as well before I push it because it has been exposed to you guys as well. So going back to my .env file, the key is gonna be secret key, and the value is gonna be this. Okay, now how do we consume this information? So we are going to use a package that we already installed. So coming back to the Py project, we can see the Django environ. The Django environ is going to help us to consume the value of the key that is contained in the .env. So first thing first, we're going to import the environ. After we import the environ, down here we're going to set it. So environ equals to, we're going to set it and also set some default value just in case. So we'll start by setting the default value. So environ.env, and we're going to set the debug. So the debug, if it is not contained in the .env file, it's going to be a boolean and the value is going to be true. Now I think the environ consume the .env by default, but just to be on the safe side, we're gonna pass the value to it manually. So it's gonna read from the .env. We can see the .env is found in our working directory. So we're gonna consume it using the base directory that takes us to the working directory. From there, we're gonna say .env. Alright, so once we have that, we can now consume our secret key that is found in the .env. So here we're gonna say env dot, we want to consume it as a string. So we're gonna put in the secret here, or the same key that we have in the .env. So let me just copy this just to make sure we don't have any typos. Okay, and for the debug as well, we're gonna use the same thing, but the debug, we want to consume it as a boolean. So it's gonna be boolean debug. It is common to define a Django application such that each app handles a specific business logic. For example, in our case, we're going to have applications like projects, subprojects, we're going to have tags, subtags, link, and so on and so forth. So in this, our to-do project, we're going to create all application in the apps directory. This way, all the applications are grouped and easy to find, and also it makes the working directory less crowded. So let's start by creating that particular folder. So in the working directory, we're going to create apps, and in that apps, we're going to create this thunder init file. The first application we're going to create is going to be the core application that serves the purpose of containing code shared across multiple applications. For example, it is common for models to share common fields like created at, modified at, public ID. Rather than duplicating all this in the model, we are going to have them in the core application, then import them where needed. What I just described above is what we call abstract model. This model is meant to be inherited because Django is not going to create Django is not going to create tables for this model. In order to do that, we are going to cd into our apps. Let's cd to the apps, and from there we can create our first application. So we're gonna use this to get back to the manage.py that is found in the working directory. Then we're gonna use the command start app, and we're gonna call the name of our application core. Alright, so we can see it has been created here. Now the reason why I did it like this is because I cannot run this command in the working directory. If I go back to the working directory and I try to do something like this, start app and core, or I try to pass in a path here, it's not going to work because the start app takes in the name of the package or the name of the application, not a path. So in order to achieve this in the apps directory, I need to first cd into it. Or what we can do is that still after cd into the apps, we can use the Django admin start app and say core, so that we don't need to refer back to the manage.py in the working directory. So looking at what has been created, we can see all the different files and directories has been created. Since this one is not going to be involved in migrations, okay, because the model here is going to be an abstract model, we want to get rid of this migration folder. We're not going to need it. We want to get rid of the we can get rid of the view as well. For now, we're not going to need it, and the admin as well, we're not going to need it for now. And yeah, so the test is going to be used to test all of these functionalities. And in the apps, because the application is now found in the apps folder, we want to make sure that we modify this particular class here. And rather than having the name to be core, it's going to be now apps.core because it moves from the working directory into the apps folder. And in most cases, it is difficult to obtain or to use this format in the setting. Okay, so in this case we can use the label here to make things easy. So rather than having to use apps.core, we can use apps_core. And for the verbose name, that is going to be displayed in our admin dashboard, we want to have just the core here. Now for the model, we are going to create a class called abstract model, and it's going to inherit model.model. And here we will need to have like 3 common fields. The first one is going to be the public ID. The public ID is going to be UUID. Okay, so I'm going to import the UUID here. From UUID import, I'm going to use the UUID4. And here, use the UUID field from Django. And it's going to be unique. And the default is going to be the UUID4. And I don't want this to be modified or editable, so I'm going to say editable false. The second one is going to be created at, and it's going to use the date field or the date time field, a timestamp from Django. And this one will be created once and it won't be modified when we modify any field. So in this case, we're going to have just the auto now at. And the next one is going to be the modified at. Same thing, going to use the date time, but this one will be created once we create an object and modified each time we modify a field in the model. So for that, we are going to have the auto now instead. Perfect. So this one is going to be true. Sorry. Okay. Now, in order to set this model as an abstract model, we need to use in the class meta, we are going to set the abstract equals to true. And there we have our abstract model. Now, in order to set this model as an abstract model, we need to use in the class meta, we are going to set the abstract equals to true. And there we have our abstract model. For every command that we're going to run in our project, we need to specify the environment in which we are running. For example, if we want to start this project now to test to make sure that everything is working fine, I'm going to go back to the working directory and I'm going to say python manage.py run server. Okay, so I have the different environments here. We can see at the level of the config. So before I even run it, let me just do some cleanup. So we don't need this setting.py anymore. So I'm gonna delete it. Okay, I'm gonna delete it. And the only settings that we have right now are these different folders, these different files that we have in the settings folder. So in order to run, let's say in the development environment, we need to specify that Django should look into this particular file. So in order to do that, we can use the settings option and we say we want to go from config, settings, def. So from config, we're gonna go into the settings and we're gonna identify the def environment or the def Python file. Okay, let's go ahead and run this and see if our application runs as expected. I'm going to make sure that all the files that has not been saved are saved. Okay, then I'm going to run it. Make sure we remove this. And okay, I hope everything else is fine. The model. Okay, so let's go ahead and test our application, see if it works. So we have a few issues at the level of line 23 of our def. So let's look at that. Line 23, we have some extra curly braces there. So I'm gonna remove it and try again. So here it says that the Django template backend instance must be configured in the templates in order to use the admin application. So I think though we don't need it, but we might need it at the level of the admin. Okay, so I'm gonna bring it back the base and I'm gonna uncomment this and we're gonna try again. And perfect, everything works fine. So we have here that we have 18 on applied migrations and we have here that we're using the development server, so we should not use this in production. Instead of running long commands like this all the time, we can instead use shortcuts. There are so many ways we can do that, but I like to use the make file. Okay, so in my working directory, I'm going to create the make file, and in this make file, I'm going to define some shortcut for all of those long commands that we have. So basically right now we have for the running the application, we may also have for migration and other things. So I'm going to put just a few that we need for now and I'm going to add it as time goes. So the first one is going to be to start our project in the development environment. So yeah, I'm going to use UV, but I can also use Python like I did in the previous command that I ran. So I can use UV run manage.py run server, then I provide the settings config settings def, and the second one is gonna be, let's say, migrate. So it's gonna be UV run manage.py migrates, and I'm gonna have settings config.settings.dev, and we can also have for make migration uv run manage.py make migrations config.settings.dev. Okay, so for now this is what we have. All right, so I'm gonna test with my make file and make sure everything works as expected. So I'm gonna just use make in this case, but if I want to run, let's say, the dev migration, I'm gonna say make dev migrates. Okay, and this, I'm referring to this shortcut, and this shortcut is gonna run the command beneath it. But when you do make like this, it always takes the first command that comes in your file. So in this case, if I want to run the server, the development server, I can just say make, and it's gonna run the uv run manage run server. So let's look at the landing page of this our application. All right, perfect. That's it for this part of the series. I already wrote an article that helps you structure your Django project using best practices. Don't forget to check it out. In our next video, we're going to focus on the Django model, the migration, and ORM. If you are new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe, to comment, to share in order to support the content. Code with Eno. See you in the next video.